My husband cannot control his family, or at least he refuses to. When his parents visit and give us crap for forcing our kids to do chores, he gives in, and the house slowly becomes a mess that I've been left to clean up. When his siblings visit, we're expected to clean up after them. I never agreed to this, so now I leave. I lock my office up and go to my parents' house. I meet up with his family at restaurants or other public places. His parents have learned now that when they visit, they have to clean up after their kids, or get them or my husband to do it. They tried saying that I was abusive for refusing to do housework while they visited. So I posted a picture of my home before they came and one I took during their last visit. I asked them why the house was so messy and dirty and if they had anything to do with it. They said it wasn't their mess. I replied that the house was clean before they showed up. Once they started getting dogpiled for messing up my house, they threw the kids under the bus. They said my kids were uncontrollable and it was their mess. I pointed out that there was no mess until they came, so obviously my kids could clean up after themselves when there weren't people telling them not to. My husband's siblings have cancelled plans to visit because they know I won't be there to clean up after them or cook, so they'll have to cook or spend money on takeout and restaurants. Great outcome in my opinion. My husband says I'm being unfair putting all the work of cleaning up on him. I said he has 2 children to help him as well as adult guests who should be able to not make a mess. I also told him he could just pay a cleaning service out of his discretionary funds if he wanted to let his family run rampant and not clean up after them. He said that I was being mean by not contributing and making him spend his money. I asked how much he normally spends on cleaning the house. The answer is nothing since the 4 of us keep the house clean and tidy on our own. Am I the idiot for staying with my parents and refusing to come home whenever my in-laws visit? Not the idiot. Your way of handling this is brilliant. The rules should clearly be that all adults pick up after themselves as a matter of course. They're humans, not monkeys at a zoo. All children are in training to learn how to pick up after themselves, and of course the training doesn't stop just because the grandparents or the cousins come to visit. It has to do with a certain grade of civilization. Non-civilized peoples may not want to pick up after themselves, but other people may choose not to associate with them on any level. I'm sorry, but you have a husband problem, not an in-law problem. Yes, they're messing up your house, but your husband won't stand up to them or back you up. The easiest solution is to tell them they must stay in a hotel when they visit you. No more freebies, no more maid service. Until things change, enjoy a nice visit with your parents when the in-laws roll into town. I don't think OP has any problem thanks to her ingenuity and spine. She's handling this brilliantly and has taken herself out of the equation. She would have a husband problem if she felt trapped with her visiting in-laws and cleaning up after them without help or support. But it sounds like she did it once or twice and then peaced out. They can either change, be uncomfortable, or stop coming. It's up to them and not her circus. Know the difference between in-laws and outlaws? Outlaws are wanted. OP's husband needs to pull his head out of his butt and take responsibility for his home. How spineless. If his family was trashing the house and he didn't have the guts to say anything, he's responsible for cleaning it up. I'm very curious if OP's children are both boys, though. This feels like it could possibly be misogyny and internalized misogyny in mother-in-law's case. Expecting everyone to keep a house together is not abusive, it's being fair. Expecting your wife mainly, especially if she's the only woman or girl living in the household, well. I, 20 female, have been dating this guy, 28, for about 7 months. I'm not a picky eater, but I am allergic to shellfish. He knows that. When deciding what to eat, I told him he could pick, and he ordered shrimp scampi for 2. I was annoyed because I couldn't eat that, and he got defensive because I told him it was his choice and that's what he chose. I didn't think I had to specify, you can pick something for us but we both have to be able to eat it. I thought that was implied. Why order food for someone knowing they can't eat it? But he thinks whatever means whatever and that it's my fault. We always take turns deciding where to eat, where to order, and we often eat together so we know what the other person likes and doesn't eat. We usually decide for ourselves like, you want to order from X place, get me Y. But at times we just have the other person order, like if one of us is running late or busy with something else. I was in the shower when he told me he ordered Italian, so I just yelled for him to pick something. He's aware I can't eat shellfish, and he's aware shrimp are shellfish, and he was aware he was ordering for me as well since he got 2 portions. Am I the idiot for telling my boyfriend to order whatever he wants for dinner, then getting upset with his choice? Not the idiot, and if I were making a dinner choice and were given the option of whatever, A, I wouldn't even order anything remotely physically near shellfish, knowing it could seriously hurt you. B, consider what you like eating. I'm a little perplexed by his choices. I could get maybe he forgot you hated pickles or ketchup and didn't have those omitted, but something that can make you sick or possibly kill you? I don't know how someone forgets that at all. This is my theory. Option 1. He's an idiot and trying to provoke. Or, option 2, he had a lapse in judgment and is saving face. He's also in his late 20s dating someone not old enough to drink, if they're in the USA anyway. In different stages of life, the age gap always gives pause. Also, they've been dating for 7 months, so it's possible they were closer to 19 and 27 when they met. Bit of a yikes in my opinion. Honey, he didn't forget, he did it on purpose to teach you a lesson. I'm not sure if there is a third possible explanation, and yes, he is an idiot in either of those cases. It's up to you to decide if you want to be in a relationship with a person that can put you in actual physical danger. What if it wasn't apparent that the meal had shrimp in it, but it used shrimp sauce or something instead? Would you be able to trust him with your food still? Or option number 3, he purposely ordered something she couldn't eat so he could have both servings. Either way, this whole situation is messed up. Seriously, how did he think this would go? Did he expect you to eat it? Did he expect you not to eat? What was his vision here? Either way, if this is a regular pattern for you, maybe slow the whole relationship down and think hard about how much more of it you want in your life. My younger brother, 22, developed a neurological disorder in his teens. When he was old enough, he became my responsibility. He seems just like everyone else, but he needs supervision and it would be tough for him to live alone. My husband knew this when we started dating. I've told him a billion times my brother will always be my priority. He understood. My husband and brother's relationship has been decent. My brother doesn't care for him much and my husband treats him kindly. Like I said, he was pretty understanding. Things started to change a couple of months ago. He's not mean, but he's become distant. I asked him if everything was all right, and he asked me if my brother would ever move out. I told him the truth, most likely no. Of course, we don't know what the future may hold, but my brother still needs me now. My husband didn't push it. The other day, my husband came home with a few of his co-workers. I was given no warning. I tried calling my brother so he wouldn't be overwhelmed when he came home from his job, but his phone was dead. So when he did come home, he was extremely overwhelmed and I had to take him for a walk. My husband called me several times while we were out on this walk, but I didn't answer. I was a little annoyed, but mostly I was busy with my brother. We went home eventually and his co-workers had left, thankfully. I was going to let it go, but my husband yelled at me for embarrassing him in front of his co-workers. I asked him what he meant by that, and he explained that I had a bad attitude with everyone and was very unfriendly. He said I didn't act like his wife, and one of his co-workers made fun of my husband for marrying a poor excuse of a woman. I told him to snap out of it and he should know better. My husband rolled his eyes and told me I have only my brother in my head and that he's just a second thought. He then called my brother the R slur. This made me extremely angry, so I told him there was no use getting mad at me. He married me knowing that he'll always be second. He called me insufferable before leaving. Now he's with his mom and she yelled at me for coddling my brother and neglecting my husband. I'm curious and need to let off steam. Am I the idiot? Edit, just in case anyone gets the wrong idea, my husband isn't involved in my brother's care at all, not even financially. I wouldn't put that burden on him. He did go to a few therapy sessions just to understand my brother's disability, but that's it. One parent is deceased, the other is the cause of my brother's problems. The relative who took him in was going to leave him homeless. He has no one else but me. I do have a normal life with normal relationships. I just have extra responsibilities. I have a job, friends, hobbies. I don't have the most time, but that was pretty much expected. No, you're not fooling anyone into thinking you have a normal life with normal relationships. Everyone's the idiot here. You shouldn't have got married. You are not marriable. Your husband shouldn't have married you knowing this and vice versa. Also, your brother is functional enough to work outside the house but can't even try independence. Do you ever plan to have children? If so, what priorities will shift? Your marriage seems at an impasse and your husband has an idiotic reaction to the situation, but this seems like a last straw moment. My main question is, do you love your husband, or is he just a side character in your life? It's great that you love and care for your brother, but I don't blame your husband for being upset. You told him he will always be number 2, and maybe he wants to be number 1 occasionally. What happens if you have children? Are you going to sacrifice your entire life for your brother? Your brother can work independently but not live independently. What will happen if you pass before him or get sick? Do you never go on holiday? Do you see children in your future? But most importantly, does your brother really need you, or have you created an unnecessary codependency that actually hampers his chance at independence? OP, you need to prioritize yourself too. Your life matters too. My 33 male parents, 64 female, 68 male, own a country house, and there's this tradition for every child in our family to plant a tree there. I did it myself when I was 5, and so did my brother, sister, nephews and nieces. I have a young grammar school-age daughter with my ex-girlfriend. My mother called me to ask if I'll have my daughter for Christmas. We usually spend Christmas in the country house, because now she's old enough to plant her tree. I told her that my daughter would spend Christmas with her mother. I'll see her a few days before going to the country house, but I also said that my stepson, pre-tween, my wife's 36th son from her first marriage, would be there. My mother was silent momentarily and told me she didn't consider having my stepson plant his tree. I was very offended by that. It made clear that she doesn't see him as part of our family. She then said there's no guarantee he'll remain in our lives, which implies she's considering that my marriage to his mother may not last. I told her if that's how she feels, she shouldn't expect us for Christmas this year. Was I too harsh? I wonder if I could be an idiot because it's her property after all, and she does have the final say. Not the idiot. My son is technically my stepson. His biological mother is not part of his life and he considers me his mum. If my family pulled a stunt like this, I would go low contact with them. Rather than let a child plant a tree, which could be moved or cut down later, your mother wants to exclude the child. There's no guarantee anyone will remain in your life, but your mother is excluding a child because she doesn't value your marriage. That's what I don't understand. Even if they get divorced, why does it matter that there's a tree planted by someone she no longer has a relationship with? And if it were a problem, why couldn't she just remove it at that point? Or just leave the tree up even if they divorce? It's not like the tree is going to grow with the leaves that have little Timmy's face on them. It's just a tree. Who cares who planted the seeds? Seems like it'd be worth it to make the kid feel accepted. I wonder if this has more to do with OP splitting up with her ex rather than their current partner, or if they haven't been together too long. It sounds like the mom is more distrustful of OP rather than spiteful to a child. It would be nice for her to include the child in the tradition, but it should also depend on whether the kid wants to be included. This is something everyone loves to complain about every single time a step-parent or family tries to force the family ideal onto. I think there's a lot of relevant information that's missing. His father and his paternal grandparents are present in his life, so he sees my parents as just that, my parents. However, my parents saw him this past year more often than they saw my own daughter because my wife has full custody of her son and he's with us most of the time. My wife and I have been married for 1 year plus 2 years of dating. You went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. You mentioned that the child doesn't view your folks as grandparents. They are your parents. Do your parents treat your stepson well otherwise? Maybe if a relationship grew over time, he could plant a tree further down the road. However, right now it sounds like he is your new stepson who already has grandparents. Seems like an extreme reaction. You are the idiot. My husband, 39, and I, 40 female, have been married for 12 years and have 3 kids, tween, pre-tween and kindergartner. I was a stay-at-home mom for most of our kids' lives and only re-entered the workforce 2 years ago when our middle child reached kindergarten, so we didn't have to pay an arm and a leg for daycare. I've worked my way up the ladder in my chosen field and finally feel like I'm more than just a stay-at-home mom. My company holds a big black tie gala for an Xmas holiday party every year. Last year we couldn't attend due to my being sick, so I was really looking forward to it this year. My sister even agreed to drive 3 hours to spend the night with the kids so we didn't have to worry about a babysitter. I bought a lovely fancy dress and my husband rented a tux in preparation for the event last Friday. Then, the week of Thanksgiving, my husband's favourite uncle passed away. My husband didn't have a relationship with his dad growing up and his uncle didn't have kids of his own, so his uncle was a father figure for my husband, even if it was more of an uncle way. The funeral was held the week before my work event, but because it was held in another state that required a flight, only my husband attended. When he got back, I talked to him about it, and he said he was sad and grieving, but also said he was fine. Nothing about his day-to-day stuff was out of the ordinary, and he took a couple of days off work after he got back to have some time to process things. My sister arrived the day before my work event, and that night my husband told me that he didn't feel up to attending the event. His reasons were that he was socially and emotionally exhausted, and the last thing he felt like doing was making more small talk with a bunch of strangers like he had to do at his uncle's funeral. I reminded him that my sister had just driven hours to watch the kids. I'd already bought a new dress, he'd rented a tux, and most importantly, I was really looking forward to this. He said I could still attend by myself, but I told him that it was also important to me that he come with me and that we hadn't had a date night in almost 6 months. He agreed to go, but he sulked about it the entire time. He dragged his feet getting ready, didn't socialize, didn't want to dance, etc. At one point, I lost track of him and found him sitting at the bar by himself. When I went to talk to him to try and get him to come to socialize with me, he told me that he'd already told me he had no energy for that and that he only came because I made him. I told him that if he was going to just sulk and drink alone, we might as well leave, and he said, "Great, let's go." I told him how disappointed I was that he acted that way at an event that he knew was extremely important to me, and he got defensive and told me it was my fault for dragging him there when he didn't want to go. He's barely spoken to me since, unless it's about the kids. You are the idiot for not going by yourself. Your husband just lost his de facto father. He's grieving. He told you he was mentally and emotionally exhausted, which is valid given what he's just been through, and didn't feel like socializing, i.e. he said his cup was empty. You ignored your husband's needs and pressed him to go even though he didn't feel like it. You could have gone solo and enjoyed yourself and let your husband stay home and relax, while your sister was kind enough to watch the kids anyway, and while he had a break to restore himself. The kicker is, I think everyone at her job would have completely understood and there would have been no negative recourse. Most people wouldn't have noticed if the OP had turned up alone. To be honest, I would find it much more notable if a colleague's spouse turned up and was an asocial idiot than if the colleague came by herself and said, "My husband sends his apologies, he had to travel for a funeral this week and is too tired to attend." That's normal and very relatable. And for God's sake, the man told you he couldn't socialize, but you hauled him out anyway, and you were angry at him because he was in no condition to socialize. What exactly prevented you from going alone? Could your sister not have gone as your date? And what exactly prevented you from letting your husband sit quietly at the bar while you hobnobbed with workers? His need to grieve, in my opinion, completely outweighs your desire for a fancy social event.